This video is an unpacking of the Stage 4 The Facts About Vaping learning sequence. It'll provide you with an explanation of each activity focus, the research behind it, and the rationale or the purpose of the learning. It draws out the relationships between sections of the sequence and provides you with guidance on how to modify the sequence and explains where to focus energy to promote learning. It'll offer tips and tricks along the way and guide you through the full delivery of the sequence. It complements the annotated sequence. The PDHPE curriculum team would like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on which we all meet on today. This material was created on Dharawal land. We'd like to pay our respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, and we'd like to extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who are watching this today. This comprehensive sequence of learning addresses the key messages of vaping through the PDHPE K-10 syllabus content and outcomes. The sequence embeds teacher notes, all learning intentions and evidence of learning, points of reference for research and resources, questioning with answers and guidance, teaching strategies, and suggested formative assessment. The sequence is designed around key characteristics of Gen Z and Alpha students. It's reflective of the syllabus propositions and embeds a research-based skill development model to empower students to challenge and understand the facts about vaping, and also have the skills to decipher media and social media marketing, as well as refuse vaping and advocate for safe decisions, behaviours and environments. Our current upper primary and secondary students are part of Generation Alpha and Generation Z respectively. The characteristics of these young people make them ideal targets for these products, and it's this profile that we had in mind when we created our resources. Because they are the first consumers to have grown up wholly in the digital era, they're tech savvy and they're mobile first, and they've got high standards for how they spend their time online. Media and social media heavily influence their perceptions of the world and trigger their high desire for reward and acceptance. Social media models behaviour, promotes trends, and exposes young people to the global views of their world. And with this comes a need for digital skills to be safe and well. Young people want to fit in. Brands are part of their identity, and marketing uses that to target them. They tap into, build, and promote youth cultures and make products desirable for young people to fit in, be part of, or promote their allegiance to. Like every young person before them, peer influence and acceptance is important, and it affects their attitudes and behaviours. They have brand influence and purchasing power well beyond their years, engaging with brands and products that speak to future needs of the generation. They've become a target demographic for companies and organisations, and their use of devices and social media, which are largely unregulated, means they have high exposure to advertising and marketing. This advertising and marketing is global, and it's very different to previous generations. They're being raised with shared customs, values, and experiences because they are global, and they're social justice focused and understand their rights as individuals and consumers. And we can see this through the groundswell and activism on a local, national, and international levels around climate change or consent education. Remembering that 7 in 10 young people are not vaping. Why are they not vaping? And how can we as teachers access the strengths and skills of these young people to promote positive action and change for the health and well-being of our community? This sequence builds pebbles of learning as students move through each activity focus. It's built around some clear pieces of evidence, and students pick up the pebbles of learning and apply them throughout the sequence. It's designed to build student curiosity and apply critical thinking through inquiry to challenge information and put the pieces of the puzzle together to come to an ultimate conclusion. The timing and the flow or sequence is crucial, so sharing information too early will affect the outcome of the learning. We want students to be empowered and to find the answers with guidance, rather than us being the experts telling them that what they know or think they know about vaping is wrong. So for students to have the confidence and competence to apply skills. We know that we have to first take the time to teach them about the skill, demonstrate how the skill looks in action, and provide opportunities for practice and evaluation and feedback. This reflects a research-based skill development model. A range of skills are important when it comes to vaping, and these include what is on screen, and the evidence of learning or the learning expectations are in the right-hand column. These aren't the only skills important for vaping situations, but these are the examples that have been taken from the syllabus and used throughout the sequence. Throughout the sequence, you'll find the support that you need. Resources are clearly listed at the front and embedded throughout, and these have been researched and used in meaningful ways to promote literacy, numeracy, critical thinking, media, and social media literacy and knowledge application. You can see that teaching notes are embedded throughout the sequence as blue boxes. Many of these teaching notes provide background information and research to support the learning. Teachers should be using their judgment to determine the suitability of sharing information from these teachers' notes with students. This would add value to the learning and guide discussion, but these decisions are based on student need and levels of maturity. Formative assessment is also embedded at multiple stages in the sequence, and it's focused on application of knowledge. We're using a pink box to show where formative assessment opportunities exist, and they're just recommended and suggested. So let's have a look explicitly at the learning experiences. Starting with activity focus 1, weighing up risk and reward. One thing we know is that young people weigh risk and reward differently to other age groups, particularly adults. Young people might engage in more risky behaviours because their brains are still maturing and they're highly sensitive to being accepted by their peers. Acceptance by peers, whether it be face-to-face, through observation and applause, or through social media recognitions like likes and comments and shares and snap streaks and Snapchat scores, all of those things result in a feeling of reward or pleasure. This pleasure is linked to the release of the hormone dopamine from the brain, and the greater the perceived reward, the greater the release of dopamine, resulting in a desire to repeat the behaviour or seek recognition or acceptance in another way. Young people respond to large rewards more than small rewards. Therefore, they're more likely to take big risks for big rewards, even when aware of the negative outcomes or dangers. The payoff has greater value for young people, therefore the risk is downplayed. So in this part of the sequence, students review a series of case studies where high risk is taken and they consider the reasons why. They explore reasonable degrees of risk and how reward influences the risk the person takes. Students consider fear of missing out or FOMO and the pressure to fit in and how that could influence people's behaviour in relation to risk-taking. They make links to social media as a platform for promoting social trends and building cultures which young people want to be a part of. In the next activity focus, we focus on fact-checking. Now, we know that the internet and social media are an integral part of the digital lives of Australian young people. And with the rapid rise in young people accessing social media platforms like TikTok, there's been a rise in individuals and organisations using social media platforms to share health information. Now, some of that health information is reliable, credible and valid, but much of it is not. So young people need the skills to decipher. A range of skills are important for students to gather information, analyse information, make judgments about reliability and credibility. And once these skills are developed and applied, students can then make informed decisions and use their assertiveness and refusal skills to reject vaping. The fact-checking activity focus section focuses on determining the credibility of social media messages. A social media audit is conducted for students to determine the type of content that they or other young people who are on social media are exposed to and its suitability. Influencers and their role in promoting products and adding credibility to brands and products is investigated, and this information is applied throughout the sequence. There's opportunities within this activity focus to draw relationships across the content. And when we look at the questions on screen where students are investigating influences and their influence, a link can be made to the opening activity in the sequence. Now, influencers or celebrities contribute to feelings of fitting in and pressure to conform. They create trends and promote products and ways of life. And the fear of missing out or the need of young people to fit in makes them vulnerable to the influence of social media celebrities and trends. This message is also reinforced throughout the sequence. Social media in this sequence is examined as a contextual factor which influences attitudes and behaviours towards vaping. Influences of various forms are also examined throughout history. At the end of this fact-checking section, you'll see there's an opportunity for formative assessment in a pink box. And as this section of the sequence allows students to evaluate social media as a reliable and credible source of health information for young people, they should apply their learning to create a social media literacy tips and trick sheet, which is then used later in the sequence to evaluate a number of TikTok videos. The facts about vaping activity encourages students to challenge their assumptions about vaping. Information has been gathered from the Do You Know What You're Vaping campaign from New South Wales Health, and students will use what they learn from this activity in their Venn diagram in future activities. Reliable sources of health information are examined and students make judgments about their effectiveness. Sharing reliable sources of information about vaping provides referral pathways and resources for further investigation by students outside of the classroom. Information gathered about reliable sources and the health messages used in these materials will be used later in the sequence when students evaluate TikTok videos of different sources and also create their own health messages targeting young people.
The activity focused learning from history. Young people don't associate vaping with tobacco cigarettes. E-cigarettes are frequently marketed as healthier, cheaper, more socially acceptable, and more agreeable to use with indoor smoking restrictions in comparison to tobacco cigarettes. We know this just isn't the case. Here, the purpose is to draw a strong relationship between tobacco cigarettes and vaping, the actions of tobacco companies, and their learnings of how hooking previous generations resulted in increased profits, and now the hooking of a new generation. We need students to analyse data and trends to recognise how the contextual factors influence the attitudes and behaviours of young people when it comes to vaping. The learning from history part of the sequence uses reliable sources to support students to build understanding of the relationship between tobacco and e-cigarettes. These sources demonstrate how the uptake of tobacco smoking, which includes the drug nicotine, was directly related to contextual factors at that point in time of history. This includes access to cigarettes during the war, advertising, role modelling of heroes, and women's economic freedom due to increased employment. Evidence tells us that Gen Z and Alpha students need to be empowered with information to draw their own conclusions. This is also reflective of a strengths-based approach. As students review the graphs in this section, it's crucial to consistently ask students why. Each source will give meaning to trends to slowly build a picture of what drove consumption up and the steps taken to reduce consumption, such as anti-smoking campaigns, policy, and the costs have on consumer choices. Ultimately, we need students to be drawing conclusions and carrying this learning into the next activity. What lessons can we learn from the history of tobacco? It's due to the disassociation between the two products that it's important to build knowledge and understanding that the tobacco leaf contains the highly addictive drug nicotine, which is found in most vapes at levels equivalent to a whole packet of cigarettes. This is the addictive components of both products, resulting in long-term use. The questioning on screen is important to determine the current image of a cigarette and tobacco smoker. This image or perception as smelly, dirty, and called cancer sticks has been built over time through careful and targeted public health campaigning. We want students to question why this perception has been created and how it has influenced attitudes and behaviours towards uptake of tobacco cigarettes. Actions of e-cigarette companies to create and market a new product deliberately move away from this image, creating a new image with new attitudes and behaviours to sell a new product. We're going to use a Venn diagram to compare tobacco cigarettes and vapes. Using a Venn diagram will help students see a visual comparison of the facts to build knowledge of the two products and to plant the seed that e-cigarettes have been created to avoid or remove all the negatives of tobacco cigarettes, such as the smell. These decisions have been quite deliberate. This can be used and referred back to when talking about the marketing of vapes later on in the sequence. Both tobacco companies and young people are consciously removing any association or relationship between tobacco cigarettes and e-cigarettes. Research tells us that young people are targets as lifetime users of e-cigarettes in the same way that young people of former generations were targets as lifetime users of tobacco, referring to this generation as replacement smokers. This section of the resource looks at how big tobacco learnt from consumption and marketing in the past to shape the targeting of a new generation. Through the activities, students should be reflecting on factual information given, asking questions and drawing conclusions about how deliberate the actions of tobacco e-cigarette companies are. We're going to access Tobacco in Australia website and refer to the stages of tobacco consumption in Australia graph. The data in this graph shows the trends of tobacco consumption. You may wish to print this or project it onto the whiteboard to link social events to consumption rates. Students will plot key times onto the graph. They relate to World War I, World War II, and when women entered their workforce. You'll notice the two dips in consumption that align with World War I and World War II. Directly following these dips were steep increases indicating increased consumption of tobacco products. Here we want students to question why there was an increase in consumption directly after each war and why there continued to be a high consumption following. The questions relate to the age of the soldiers to establish the idea of lifetime users. But don't share this information with students yet. Allow them to put the pieces of the puzzle together as they go. At this point, we highlight the timing when women access the workforce. This allows students to think of women having a certain amount of economic freedom and an opportunity to have resources to build a self-image. The advertising activity in this section will support the targeting of women. We share the following information with the class: that cigarettes became abundant in the trenches of the First World War. This factual information here confirms thinking and further unpacks the answers to the previous question. It's confirmed here that Australian Armed Forces accessed free and donated cigarettes containing nicotine. It's this point here where tobacco companies began their stronghold on behaviours of generations of the young people. There was no confirmation that this was a deliberate act. However, this began a social experiment for tobacco companies to learn from. This simple questioning is to check understanding, drawing students back to what they've learned about tobacco containing nicotine. Students just learnt the language Allied armies, ensuring understanding that Australian soldiers were a part of the Allied forces, which will help decode the inferential messaging in the following activity. This activity aims to create a relationship between tobacco, behaviour or symptoms of addiction and the role of the world wars. This will authenticate the messaging and give meaning to the trends in the previous activity. Students will read short extracts or quotes from soldiers during the war and their anecdotal relationship to tobacco cigarettes. The language from these letters show the importance of access to tobacco cigarettes and the soldiers' dependence on these products. Language such as first thing they ask for is a smoke, I'm hard up for cigarettes, or I'm terribly short of cigarettes just now, I don't know how to get on, is all language we can relate to the essential nature of tobacco cigarettes during this time. The following questioning from these quotes aims to help students to draw conclusions about the addictive nature of cigarettes and how cigarettes became normative behaviour for these soldiers in the Allied forces. Referring back to the graph and reminding students of the trends or sharp increases following each war reinforces messaging around access and consumption and then behaviour change. Students are then given a quote. This is factual information of what was happening socially at the time to support fact building and knowledge collection. Understanding the population boom known as the baby boomer years aims to create relationships between the influence of these returning soldiers' habits to the influence on attitudes and behaviours towards health and well-being of those around them. This supports students to account for why the consumption rate remained so high following World War II. Students might identify that soldiers returning from war are heroes or become role models. These role models were influencers. These can be compared to current day influences later in the sequence. Humans are social animals, learning behaviour from others and fitting into social norms. The platform for socialisation and promotion has evolved, but the impact has stayed the same. These soldiers, or the historical influencers' next stage of life was to become parents, and new generations watched tobacco use within public spaces, restaurants, pubs, clubs, workplaces, within the home, within cars. Smoking became normalised behaviour, increasing consumption of not just tobacco, but of nicotine. Addiction to this drug was widespread. Recording and cataloguing this information in the 1-minute quick write, or KWLH, will determine if key connections have been made. This is a quick, low-level but essential formative assessment strategy. The influence of consumers and the government section of the sequence allows students to explore the role marketing had on tobacco consumption and the role the government approach took to build knowledge and put in place structures to empower consumers to take action and cease use of tobacco. Students will use a collaborative activity to explore the historical tobacco advertising. Hindsight and time allows us to place a critical lens over the messages and the tactics of tobacco companies versus current knowledge and perceptions of cigarettes. We want to question, how did these perceptions change? What do we now know about tobacco cigarettes and the drugs or chemicals that they contain? Through these advertising campaigns, we can explore who and how tobacco cigarettes were marketed as safe. We see specific strategies used to target audiences, such as young people and women, to glamorise tobacco and sell a lifestyle or culture. We see influences and messages which are untrue, allowing students to question the ethics and the credibility of the ads themselves. These specific collections were strategically chosen based on the opportunity to compare to current marketing campaigns. As a collective group, this activity should question whether we see these same tactics and campaigns repeated through the messaging around e-cigarettes. Who is sending this message? Who is it being sent to, and why is this message being sent? After reviewing the marketing campaigns that drove tobacco consumption up, we look at the actions that drove consumption down. What was it that created the current perceptions of tobacco products? We use the Tobacco in Australia factors driving changes in tobacco consumption graph. It's the same graph used earlier in the sequence with key policy and campaign releases plotted. This graph is essential to identify the role public health promotion and government policy have on behaviour, the knowledge and skill development delivered through these campaigns, and the changes to the social and cultural environment through policy implementation have all contributed to consumers being empowered to change the narrative around their health and well-being. Can this happen again? What and how can young people empower themselves without policy and campaigns? What knowledge and skills do they need to change the narrative and trends around e-cigarettes and vaping? We're going to return to the 1 minute quick write or KWLH, and we're going to monitor to see if students have taken the messages that we need them to take in order to question tobacco companies. What have these companies learned? And we aim to now further question the integrity of these companies as we move through the sequence. Activity focus, the power of brands. We know young people, like everyone, want and need to feel accepted, and advertisers make young people feel like they would be accepted if they own certain items and live certain lifestyles. Companies like e-cigarette companies use this need to sell a product. Building a culture and lifestyle through advertising and marketing convinces people to base our identities on these products. This section of the sequence aims to challenge students' perception of trust and build their understanding of consumer power. Ultimately, we need students to question the actions of e-cigarette companies and consider what collective actions as consumers would change the current trends and attitudes towards vaping. Application of their understanding of consumer action on tobacco consumption from the previous section is essential here. We're going to use this questioning to draw on knowledge of the role of influencers from tobacco advertising section and the social media section here. This is an example of a pebble and link throughout the sequence. You can see on screen questioning within the brand section is making a relationship to earlier content related to influencers. Students have just learnt about branding and through questioning created their own connection to brands. Some will have a greater connection than others, and that's okay. It's this point in the sequence that we want to create a recognition that tobacco is a brand and further reinforce the idea consumers have strength and power to collectively either build a brand or cancel a brand, like they've done with tobacco. This can be because of the actions of the company that produces the brand or because of the impact of that brand on the community. Is it possible to collectively cancel vaping as a brand? What companies do young people need to cancel for that to happen? Through the reveal of this information, we're hoping that students wonder how these tobacco companies can make profit, and that it is here that there might be a connection that these companies are one in the same, or the profit that is being made through the sale of another health impacting product. This is then confirmed through the offering of the next piece of factual text. Tobacco companies either fully own or invest in 4 of the top 5 e-cigarette companies. Why? What do they know that means that this is a strong economic investment for them? We want to build association between consumers and trust. We want students to recognise the actions of tobacco companies is deliberate, deceitful, and they cannot be trusted. We focus on intentional deception. We looked at the advertising campaigns of tobacco companies earlier. Over time, and as the symptoms amongst the smoking population were linked to long-term use or the effects of secondhand smoke, tobacco companies continued sending messages that tobacco cigarettes were safe. Although government policy is introduced, tobacco companies used intentional deception strategies to send the messages that their product is safe and downplaying or denying the evidence globally of their product impacting on health. Based on what we know now, can we trust these messages? We revisit the idea around, can we see the same tactics repeated through the messaging around e-cigarettes? Who is sending this message? Who is it being sent to? Why is this message being sent? What is the link between economics and profit building? Providing examples of recent event or incidents will assist students in this section. Students may be aware of situations such as needles in strawberries and their removal off shelves, hoverboard batteries exploding, or product tampering or listeria in food. The ACCC is an authority in Australia whose role is to protect the consumer. However, it presides within the boundaries of legislation and fair trading. This means that there are regulations set in place, and this authority follows and reinforces these regulations or rules. Companies follow the rules, and consumer reacts to this through their consumer footprint. This activity introduces students to small case studies aiming to demonstrate a company's response when something within their brand unexpectedly goes wrong and the consumer's safety is impacted or at risk. Here, we want students to wonder why there is such a response. Why might there be a reaction that is economically detrimental to the brand, such as mass recalls costing millions? Why are these companies choosing this course of action? What are the messages being sent to consumers if these companies are willing to take such an economic fall? The questioning following these short case study brings community values and the buildings of trust between brands and consumers. We see values as what is important to us, and trust as a belief that can dictate actions and behaviour. We can't touch trust, but it relies on a gut feeling to decipher and decode messages and marketing tactics from brands. Most companies have a vision statement or a mission statement. A company can build trust and economically build a brand by sharing their values or mission statements with their consumers. Marketing will often reflect these values, and as should company actions. This activity asks students to match the vision statement to the company from the previous case study. The aim is to create the relationship between values and action. A vision statement can also identify who a target market can be. Their language will often be emotive and aimed at impact of individual and the community. Marketing tactics will target this feeling and emotion and want their consumer to take an action, like buying the product, or use word of mouth or other informal methods of selling. Have this in the back of your mind that this is essential learning for a future activity related to the mission statement and actions of an e-cigarette company. These last questions are again designed to create a relationship between the values and responsibility and moral actions of a company based on their own vision statements. Here we build connections to companies who recognise and support the health, safety and well-being of its target market. Students should begin to wonder about tobacco or e-cigarette companies and what their values are and who their target market is. Now we're going to share a similar incident of impact on physical health and well-being due to explosions and burns of e-cigarettes. Here we're also sharing the actions of the companies who have created these devices. But nothing's happened. Why not? It's important to continually use the language of e-cigarette throughout the teaching of the sequence to continually create the connection between vapes and tobacco cigarettes. This questioning supports students to reflect on the brand, the companies and their values to protect the consumer. Why is there no action? We want to highlight and question why there was one incident and the company takes action compared to 2,000 incidents from e-cigarette companies and zero action. Here we are still wondering who their target market is. Would it be different if the target market was different? We share that this is a global issue. How widespread is this issue? Why hasn't anything been done? Whose responsibility is it? Is there confusion for a reason? How long does it take for a new generation to be hooked? Who will step in and prevent this from happening? Again, returning to your 1 minute quick write or KWLH is essential to see if students have been able to draw the connections that we need them to in order to help with the understanding as we go through the sequence. Below is the mission statement and information in relation to one of the most popular brands of e-cigarettes. Students have just learned about the actions of companies who respond when things go wrong with their products. They have deciphered the values of these companies communicated through their mission statements and drawn conclusions about why they have taken the actions that they did. Questioning has started to link these to the target markets and marketing tactics. Students will use the knowledge and apply what they've learnt to the mission statement of an e-cigarette company. Based on the mission statement, students draw conclusions about the action of the company. Additional information about the company is then shared, showing the deceptive and deliberate nature of marketing to young people from the e-cigarette company. This is in complete contradiction to the mission statement. We would expect students to assume a company's behaviour aligns to their values within their mission statement. This should now be a moment where students are fully understanding the deceptive nature of tobacco and e-cigarette companies that has been slowly revealed throughout the sequence. This activity is designed to further highlight the deception between an e-cigarette's vision statement and their action. This directly compares the vision statement of ethical companies who value the health and well-being of the consumer. Here, students should be drawing strong conclusions about tobacco e-cigarette companies and thinking more about community action and their role in taking action against e-cigarettes. How are young people being used by these companies? Why are they the target? Are these companies expecting to see the consumption rates similar to the tobacco rates? Are these companies underestimating this generation? Students start to wonder about the same addictive substance in tobacco cigarettes that caused those high consumption rates after soldiers were hooked. Is this the new generation of soldiers? Is this generation going to use the hindsight of advertising and marketing tactics to draw conclusions like previous generations have had? Or are e-cigarette vaping another coincidence or another social experiment? The following activity will confirm it's not just another coincidence, but a calculated opportunity to ensure tobacco companies, e-cigarette companies are one in the same and are using the next generation to become lifetime users again. This information is crucial in making explicit the relationship between earlier sections of the sequence. The use of underground documents shared through the tobacco quotes brings these messages together. These show the inside information from tobacco companies and provide evidence that marketing is a deliberate tobacco industry strategy designed to target young people, cause confusion, cast doubt, and hook them as lifetime users of a product which is known to cause harm. This should be viewed by students as the ultimate betrayal of a vulnerable community. The actions of tobacco and e-cigarette companies ignore the power of young people, ignores the power young people have as informed decision makers and agents of change.
In the evolution of e-cigarettes part of the sequence, students investigate the deliberate marketing and promotion of e-cigarettes to young people by unpacking, questioning, and analysing aspects of language, design, and other strategies or characteristics used by e-cigarette companies to appeal to young people, such as the use of flavours and the stealthing culture. These characteristics should form part of the Venn diagram earlier in the sequence, but should now be interrogated as strategies which form part of the deliberate deception of young people. Students are provided with some factual information around the development of the e-cigarette. They're also offered some visual evolution of the e-cigarette design through to the devices that this generation calls vapes. Tobacco companies didn't always own vapes, and this questioning allows young people to begin to notice the change of language and the change of design to align to the deception of when these tobacco companies began investing in this product. Again, students will come back to their 1-minute quick write or their KWLH, and it's essential to see if students have again been able to draw the connections that we've needed them to. Students move on to a 5 whys activity. The sample problems that are provided are reflective of the characteristics of vapes which appeal to young people. These problems are the facts about vaping. The use of a 5 whys strategy promotes the interrogation of the problem or the facts about vapes and vaping. It enables students to further question the actions of e-cigarette companies. When we start looking at advertising and social norms, we look explicitly at advertising and marketing on social media. We should be making links to the social media audit from earlier in the sequence. What content are young people exposed to? Do they recognise sponsored content and advertising? Unpacking the tactics of marketing and advertising has occurred throughout the sequence, and this is a key feature of media literacy to be able to build the skills of students to identify reliable, factual, and credible information. What has been learnt about social media as a credible and reliable source of health information or not is now tested in this activity. Students collect more examples of tactics used to sell health messages to young people via the popular platform TikTok. 4 video examples are used to show a broad range of tactics. This information is gathered and used when students design their own persuasive or informative text or video for young people later in the activity. A clear relationship between the tactics used by tobacco companies in the early 20th century and e-cigarette companies now should be drawn. And this should include the promotion of products as safe, the deception of users and the community, the use of influencers to normalise the product, and the use of glamorous lifestyles and desirable images to sell a culture or a way of life rather than just the product itself. When we move into looking at social media action, we use a quote from a health expert, which reinforces what has been learned throughout the sequence. The situation with vaping trends and effects on health are clearly linked to the actions of tobacco companies in the past. We want students to identify the clear role of different people, and this should link back to the history of tobacco section in terms of public policy, health campaigns, and consumer action. We want students to see their role in rejecting vaping, promoting positive action against vaping, and ultimately, we want students to feel empowered to use social media to create collective action against vaping. In the concluding activity for this section, it's really a culmination of learning until this point. It's based on full application. It allows the teacher to gather evidence of a student's ability to identify credible messages about vaping using the facts, using tactics which specifically target young people, and using platforms or methods which young people use. All learning which has taken place within the sequence. In our last activity focus, we move more towards what we've seen in traditional drug education. Until this point in the sequence, information gathering and analysis skills have been developed, practiced, and evaluated. The knowledge and understanding which has been gathered and analysed can now be applied as students practice their assertiveness and refusal skills in different vaping situations. Students can create these vaping hypothetical situations, and they should reflect high risk and reward. They then predict outcomes of the situation and plan strategies to reduce the risk in the situation. For any teacher who does not want to create the hypothetical situations, we've provided you with some sample vaping situations instead. The application of skill in real-life situations is crucial for development for young people. So in this sequence, students will practice responding to the hypothetical situations that have been developed. The aim of this is to develop their confidence and their communication skills. We hope this video has helped you to unpack the sequence, and we hope you enjoyed teaching the sequence to your students. We certainly enjoyed making it. If you have any questions, then feel free to contact myself, Renee West. Details are on screen, or contact Kate Rayner, the PDHPE Curriculum Support Advisor, who's also presented with us today. Or jump into the statewide staff room at any stage and contact anyone within our team.